The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was once the gold standard of modern aviation, sleek, efficient, and for years, accident-free. Airlines and passengers alike trusted its cutting-edge technology and reputation for safety, making it a symbol of progress in the skies. The Dreamliner was celebrated for its innovative design, fuel efficiency, and advanced avionics, setting a new benchmark for commercial air travel. That changed on June 12, 2025, when Air India Flight 171, a 787-8, crashed just seconds after takeoff from Ahmedabad, killing all 241 on board and 19 on the ground. The disaster unfolded in a matter of moments, leaving behind a scene of devastation and heartbreak. Families waited for news that would never come, and the world watched in disbelief as the scale of the tragedy became clear. The world was stunned. News of the crash dominated headlines, and people everywhere struggled to comprehend how such a tragedy could strike a plane renowned for its reliability. The loss sent shockwaves through the aviation community and beyond, raising urgent questions about what went wrong. How could such a modern aircraft simply fall from the sky? Experts and the public alike demanded answers, as speculation swirled about possible causes. Was it a rare mechanical failure, a lapse in human judgment, or something more complex hidden within the plane's sophisticated systems? Early speculation pointed to pilot error, especially after investigators noted the engine fuel cutoff switches had been moved. This detail seemed to suggest a critical mistake in the cockpit, fueling debate and uncertainty. But as the investigation progressed, doubts began to surface about this initial theory. But as India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau dug deeper, the narrative shifted. Investigators meticulously combed through the wreckage, determined to uncover the truth behind the disaster. Their findings would soon challenge the earliest assumptions. Data from the flight recorders hinted at a technological failure, not human error. The black boxes revealed anomalies in the aircraft's systems that could not be explained by pilot actions alone, opening up a new line of inquiry. The focus turned to the aircraft's advanced electronic systems. Could automation have created a disaster that looked like a pilot's mistake? Investigators began to scrutinize the Dreamliner's complex software and digital controls, searching for hidden flaws that might have triggered the catastrophe. The crash of AI171 became a test case for the risks of automation in aviation. It forced the industry to confront uncomfortable questions about the limits of technology and the potential dangers of relying too heavily on automated systems, even in the world's most advanced aircraft. The pilot's final words, captured on the cockpit voice recorder, would soon transform them from suspects to the first victims of a silent electronic catastrophe. Their struggle in those final moments became a haunting reminder of the unforeseen risks that can lurk within even the most sophisticated machines. The disaster unfolded in just over 30 seconds. At 13:38:39 UTC, a catastrophic electrical failure struck. The ram air turbine deployed, signaling total loss of main power. Seconds later, the flight data recorder logged both engine fuel switches moving to cutoff, shutting down the engines. The pilots, caught off guard, frantically tried to understand what was happening. One asked, "Did you hit the cutoff switches?" The other denied it. The aircraft lost altitude rapidly. The pilots tried to restart the engines, but there wasn't enough time. A desperate mayday call was sent, but the engines couldn't relight before impact. Both recorders stopped just before the crash. The sequence was so fast and precise, it immediately raised doubts about pilot error. Investigators saw a pattern. The plane's systems acted with a speed and symmetry no human could match. The question was no longer what the pilots did, but what the plane did to them. The cockpit voice recorder revealed not panic, but confusion. The pilots faced a scenario their training never covered, both engines shutting down, uncommanded, seconds after takeoff. One pilot's urgent question, "Did you hit the cutoff switch?" was met with a firm denial. This exchange was crucial. It showed the shutdown was as much a mystery to the crew as to investigators. The pilots weren't making mistakes, they were reacting to a system acting on its own. Their dialogue became the cornerstone of a new theory, a systems failure, not human error. The speed of the emergency left them with no time to recover. Their focus on the fuel switches showed they understood the problem, but not its cause. The real culprit was a phantom command sent by the plane, not the pilots. Three technologies are key to this mystery: the ram air turbine, or RAT, the engine fuel switches, and the full authority digital engine control, known as FADEC. Each plays a unique role in the safety and operation of a modern jetliner, and together they form a complex web of interdependent systems that can mean the difference between a routine flight and a crisis. The RAT is a small, emergency wind turbine that deploys automatically when all main electrical power is lost. It's a last resort device designed to provide just enough hydraulic and electrical power to keep the aircraft controllable in dire situations. The engine fuel switches, meanwhile, are intended for use only in emergencies or during engine shutdowns on the ground. After takeoff, they're not meant to be touched unless something has gone terribly wrong. But it's the 787's FADEC that stands out as the true wildcard. FADEC is essentially the digital brain of the engines, a sophisticated computer that interprets pilot commands, monitors hundreds of engine parameters in real time, and makes split-second decisions to optimize performance and safety. Importantly, the flight data recorder doesn't log the physical position of the fuel switches, but rather the electronic signals sent by FADEC. This means that if FADEC malfunctions, perhaps due to a sudden electrical failure, software glitch, or corrupted data, it can send a shutdown command to the engines even if the pilots never physically touch the switches. On Air India 171, the sequence of events, RAT deployment followed by the near-simultaneous shutdown of both engines, strongly suggests that FADEC was compromised. The pilots suddenly found themselves fighting not just a technical failure, but a system that had, in effect, turned against them. The evidence points to a catastrophic, uncommanded engine shutdown, triggered not by human error, but by the aircraft's own digital brain. In those critical moments, the crew's frantic actions were desperate attempts to reverse a decision they never made, as they struggled to regain control of a jetliner that was no longer listening to its pilots. At first glance, investigators were quick to suspect pilot error as the most likely explanation for the unfolding disaster. After all, in aviation, human mistakes are often the root cause of accidents, and it seemed to fit the initial facts. The flight data recorder clearly showed the fuel switches being moved at a critical moment, an action that would have cut off fuel to the engines. It looked like an open and shut case, a simple but tragic mistake. But as investigators dug deeper, the timeline of events began to unravel that theory. The sequence just didn't add up. The ram air turbine, or RAT, deployed before the fuel switches were touched. This detail was crucial. It meant the electrical failure happened first, not as a result of pilot action. That sequence ruled out a simple pilot mistake. The pilots couldn't have caused the initial failure, no matter how it looked. Even more telling, the switches were moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost mechanical, far too exact for a human acting under stress or panic. Then, investigators recalled a chilling precedent. In 2019, a Boeing 787 in Japan experienced a dual-engine shutdown, triggered by a FADEC software glitch. No pilot input was involved at all. In that case, the crew was able to restart the engines and avert disaster, thanks to quick thinking and a bit of luck. But for the crew of AI171, fate was not so kind. Their efforts to recover failed, and the situation spiraled out of control. As the evidence mounted, it became clear the disaster was triggered not by human hands, but by the aircraft's own automated systems. The investigation's focus shifted dramatically, from asking, what did the pilots do wrong, to what did the plane do to the pilots? The crash exposed a terrifying vulnerability in modern aviation. Automation can fail in ways that are almost indistinguishable from human error, making it even harder to detect and prevent. The real threat wasn't lurking in the cockpit. It was hidden deep within the lines of code that controlled the aircraft's most vital systems. In the end, the tragedy of AI171 forced the entire aviation industry to confront a sobering reality. The ghost in the machine is real, and it demands our attention. The pilot's final words weren't a confession. They were a plea for understanding. Their denial of touching the fuel switches reframed the entire disaster. The cockpit voice recorder gave context to the cold data. The crew was trying to solve a problem, not create one. Their Mayday call came only after they'd tried everything to restart the engines. They followed their training to the end. Troubleshoot first, then call for help. The CVR transformed the pilots from suspects to victims of a technological betrayal, In an age of automation, their words challenge us to look deeper than the data. The line between human error and machine failure has never been more blurred. Their final testimony is a warning: trust, but verify the systems we build. Black boxes are supposed to tell the whole story, but on AI171, one was destroyed in the tail. Normally the safest spot. Its loss raised suspicions of a pre-impact electrical fire, possibly the root of the catastrophe. The missing data left investigators with only fragments: RAT deployment, FADEC shutdown, pilot's denial. Even the plane's automated data links went silent before the crash. The destroyed recorder became evidence itself, pointing to a fire or surge that crippled the aircraft's brain. The full truth may never be known, but the signs all point to a system failure, not a human one. The crash sent shockwaves through aviation. India's AAIB, the NTSB, Boeing, and GE launched a global investigation, but progress was slow and communication sparse. No fleet-wide grounding followed, but airlines quietly began reviewing their 787s, especially electrical and FADEC systems. Air India cut flights for internal checks. European carriers started their own reviews. The 2019 ANA incident, once dismissed, now loomed large. The tragedy reignited calls for cockpit video recorders, technology that could have instantly settled the pilot error debate. In an era of complex automation, video may soon become a global standard. AI171's legacy is already changing how airlines and regulators approach safety. The crash of AI171 marks a turning point in aviation. For years, automation was seen as the answer to human error. Now it's clear complex systems can fail in ways that fool even the best pilots. The Dreamliner's advanced controls became its Achilles heel. The lesson is clear: automation must be transparent, and pilots must always have the final say. Training and design will need to evolve, ensuring humans can override the machine when it matters most. The final words of AI171's crew are a solemn reminder: technology should serve pilots, not replace them. The investigation continues, but its impact on aviation safety will be felt for decades.